Segment 3, Gold and Black Live, and Brian Neubert and Bobby Riddell join us. Great to have Bob on the show and have this. It's getting near time to talk basketball, but and I think that's what's exciting. It is November, so we should be talking basketball, Bobby. But congratulations first on the opportunity with the Purdue Radio Network, going to be the color analyst this year, working with Rob Blackman. That's going to be exciting for you.
Yeah, certainly. Very excited. As you know, grew up in Lafayette, lifelong Purdue fan. Obviously got the pleasure of playing for the Boilers. So definitely a dream come true to be able to work on the radio side. Always I've listened to Cliz and Rob Blackman all growing up and over the last handful of years. And always imagine what it'd be like to be on, just because I'm a big sports guy, and who doesn't, think it'd be cool to do sports radio. So definitely really excited to talk Purdue basketball.
Yeah.
Was this something you kind of sought out, or did they come to you? And if so, what was it about you think?
Well, no, I didn't seek it out. They came to me. I think obviously my location to Purdue University helps. You can't live in California and probably do that job for Purdue as often as you have to be in Mackey Arena to call these games. So certainly, I'm sure someone from a location standpoint was obviously a good fit. And then, I have a good relationship with a lot of the guys on staff, just over, certainly playing for Coach Painter. Elliot was there when I played. And then just being in close touch with all those guys for all the alumni events that we do every year. Since I live here in Lafayette or Indianapolis, I lived there for a little bit. I've always been able to come back for all those and stay in close touch. And so, I think that certainly helped my case, is having great relationships with all those guys still from my playing days and from coming back for the alumni events. And so when they gave me the call, when Elliot gave me the call, he said, I was someone that they've always had on a short list of people that they thought could be good for it when the time ever came, if there was an opening. And so, I was super stoked to get the call when I got it. And then it just became about, okay, how do I ask my wife and how do I approach work? Because obviously, unfortunately, it's not enough pay to quit my day job kind of thing. So it was all about how do I approach those two entities about getting the approval, and both sides ended up being super great, giving me, this is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so, we're going to go for it and see how it pans out.
Yeah. Give our viewers a little bit of what is your day job. I think I know what it is. But tell us what you do. And it isn't a job. It's a job at a certain time of year is a lot of work. So go ahead.
No question. So that's certainly the first thing came to my mind was, my job is a CPA. I'm a tax accountant primarily, and I work for a firm called Heman Lawson Hawks here in West Lafayette. We have an office in Lafayette as well. To plug my firm. And so I've been working here for 5 years, and obviously tax preparation is our biggest source of revenue here. So obviously the busiest time of year is tax season, which is that January to April 15th window. So unfortunately that obviously coincides with a lot of the conference, primarily the conference season and Big Ten tournament, March Madness, things of that nature. So, that was obviously one of the hurdles. Fortunately, in today's day, we can do a lot of work remotely. And so, if I was going to, and this is something we may talk into later, but unfortunately with COVID, the travel restrictions, the radio broadcast is most likely not going to be traveling with the team for road games. And so, that's one less piece that I have to deal with certainly this year is the travel, but I was going to try to do a lot of work from the road. Obviously you're in these hotels all day until the game tips off at say 8 or 7 p.m. at night. So I was going to try to balance prepping for the game while doing some work for my day job remotely. And so fortunately with technology these days, I was going to be able to do a lot of that still. And, but it was going to be a lot of time management and obviously doing my best to make sure I got everything lined up and But for on the home side of things, I always was telling my wife, I already go to all the home games anyways, and
Yeah, there you go.
I'm already glued to the TV on all the road games. So really, it's like I'm not even going to be gone. So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah, that attention span is right there. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
exactly.
Obviously, during your playing days, everybody kind of knew you as Bobby Buckets. Is it Bobby Broadcaster now? What do you go with?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to.
I was trying to come up with
get a
something for
nickname.
headset, but that didn't really work with the T.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe we'll have to get something, but I don't think I'll have the fans cheering for me quite like they used to in this role,
Oh,
unfortunately.
To ask you a less stupid question, when you grew up, did you listen to Purdue on the radio, or did you go to the games, or did you watch on TV? What was kind of your background listening
Sure.
to radio broadcast?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly. I definitely have memories of like we're traveling to grandma and grandpa's for Christmas at the in-laws or the grandma and grandpa, and having Larry Clisby on in the car, listening to the games with the family as we're driving. So I have memories of that. Definitely, my dad and I would go to a lot of games, and so we'd always have the pregame and postgame show on, driving, to and from the games. So those are my major memories. I have my biggest memory of Larry Clisby probably is they came out with a 1993, 1994 basketball highlights video. If you guys may recall this, but
yeah,
Larry Clisby is like the narrator on basically the whole video for the men's side of things, and I watched that like religiously growing up. I'd probably watched it all the time. Matt Waddell was like my favorite player when I was a kid. That's why I wore number 11 at Purdue, and so. Matt Waddell, Konzo Morton, obviously the big dog, and Larry narrates that whole video. And so I always loved his voice and, listened to a lot of the broadcasts growing up.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could probably put that to memory. It was about the right age where you probably could recite.
Yeah, it was that sweet spot for sure. Yeah.
How many times have you watched that Robinson Ostertag dunk now? I mean, that's been at least one or two, I'm guessing. So.
Yeah, that Kansas game. I remember having that game on VHS and would watch that back a lot as well.
Yeah, YouTube is your friend because you can actually go watch that now. That whole thing's on YouTube. It's still amazing. The big dog is unbelievable in the first half. Konzo Morton is unbelievable.
Yes.
He reminds me of that Bobby Riddell guy, I think. That's turned into that.
Yeah,
into that a little bit later. But Konzo Morton, that one 4-point play where he's falling out into the seat.
Right in front of the bench. Yeah.
So
yeah, that was always super neat. When I got that experience to play and have Konzo was on staff for 3 of the 4 years I was there, and he was just someone obviously, like I said, I looked up to tremendously from watching those videos and those games, and he was even cooler in person than he was on TV. He was super fun to play for and one of my favorite coaches for sure.
No, you had a really interesting. I mean, obviously, you're on that list of all-time fan favorites, and maybe because you're a local, maybe because of size, the fact that you could fill it up. But you had an interesting experience too. You had a time where you had to play a lot. I think it was your sophomore year especially, and then other guys came in and your role changed. Talk about that and what that taught you, but also what that says about what Matt Painter brought as a basketball coach at that time.
Yeah, so you were close there. It was my freshman year was the year. It was Coach Painter's first year. There was a lot of transition going on, and we ended up having some injuries with like Carl and David Teague. Terrence Crump was unavailable that year. And so, I go from being like, I hope I get a dress for one of the home games and like run out the tunnel when I make the team to like, I'm playing major minutes against the Indiana Hoosiers at home. Like, that was quite a transition. So that was an experience, but obviously we weren't very good. We got last in the Big Ten. So it was fun to play, of course. It was a dream, but my senior year was when I got to play some as well in the rotation, a little bit in the back end of the rotation, but we were much better. Obviously, we ended up winning the Big Ten tournament. And so that was a real more fun experience to be, get some meaningful minutes on a team that was successful. But like my sophomore, junior year, we had Teagan Landry came back my sophomore year, Kramer and Keaton Grant came into the fold. Terrence was available. And so, it was, definitely harder to obviously go from playing to not playing as much, but being on a winning team. And I was always a Purdue fan first, honestly. So for Purdue
Yeah.
to win in general, I wasn't someone who's worried about my minutes as maybe some other guys are, of course. But yeah, that was an experience going from playing to not playing. But that was something that was a dream come true to be on those Purdue teams that were winning. And then when the Baby Boilers came in my junior year, that was obviously exciting. And competing against those guys every day in practice was always a lot of fun. Etwan Moore had the biggest hands ever, and would just like incredible practicing against him. He'd always block your shot when you thought he had no chance of doing so. But and then for it to come full circle in senior year, obviously, like I said, get a play on a team that was successful was definitely a fun way to cap off the end of my career.
Yeah.
So with your experiences both in the program but also around the program when you were younger, what do you feel like you can kind of bring to the broadcasts from all of that stuff?
Sure. I mean, I think that's certainly where I can be, the biggest asset to the broadcast as far as just I was able to play for Coach Painter. I followed all the Coach Katie teams, and that's one of the unique things about Purdue now is 40 years of just two coaches. And I'm 34, and so I've been following closely since I've been probably the last like 26, 27 years. And so, lots of years of following Purdue closely, and then obviously playing for Coach Painter. I think I can have some fun aspects of being able to bring my experience of playing for Coach Painter and what that's like, and what's it like being in the huddles and being in the locker room and the prep. Even my 5th year when I was there at Purdue, I got to be a student assistant coach.
That's right.
So I was able to be in all the coaches' meetings and watch film. All those things too gives me additional perspective and point of view that I think can be unique to the broadcast and can be fun. So hopefully I can add that.
Yeah. What is Matt Painter? What makes him really good, do you think? I mean, what really makes him an excellent college basketball coach now that you've seen him from all those different angles?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he's an amazing coach. I mean, first off, he just lives and breathes the game. Like, he just eats it up, can't get enough of it, whether it's pro, college, high school. That obviously, to be really good at your craft, you have to be obsessed and passionate about it. And he is that to a T. He's someone who's, as a player at Purdue, I think that really helps him too, as far as being able to relate to players. He's walked in their shoes. That always helps. And then I think now, he's in that perfect bubble of experience, and he's comfortable in his own shoes, and he just knows the X's and O's of the game so well. And obviously from a recruiting standpoint, he's really hitting a stride. And so I don't think there's anyone else Purdue would rather have at this point than him, which is pretty awesome.
Since all you former players are now trying to break into the media, what has Hummel told you about all this?
Yeah, so Rob's one of my best friends, really, really close with him. And so actually, he was one of the first guys I told when I got the opportunity. And he's done some radio from a national broadcast standpoint. Obviously most people know him for his TV work, but he's done some radio stuff too from a color commentator standpoint. So I was really intrigued to pick his brain, and I ended up going up to Chicago earlier this year. Actually, me and my wife, and we went and hung out with him and his girlfriend, and we just had a fun weekend. But one of the days we kind of spent some time sitting down. We actually watched, I think it was the Purdue-Wisconsin game last year. He did the national radio for that game. And so we synced up the game with his broadcast. Wow. And just sat there and it was just good for me to get an idea of how the banter, from between the play-by-play guy and the color guy and how it works. And, when is your time to talk and when is it not? And, Robbie obviously is a guy that I see the game very similar to him. I feel like we have obviously similar experiences and backgrounds in the game. And so it was just interesting to see how he called the game from a color commentator standpoint. And obviously I can be a little bit more of a homer, which is nice from a Purdue side of things, whereas obviously he had to be more of a neutral observer. But that was fun to go to interact with him. And he's someone obviously who's very experienced now in the business, and someone I'll definitely be calling and leaning on a lot, I'm sure, whenever I'm looking for advice.
Yeah, he's great in that light, I'm sure, and that'll be a good thing. All right, now we look at this season, and Purdue has an interesting, trying to come back from a year that wasn't as good. You've had a couple guys that have left the program, but you've got Purdue's got talent,
Sure.
and it will be and it's a COVID year, so all those factors. What do you think we're going to see?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of new guys that are entering the fold this year, along with some also very important, returning guys who contributed a lot last year. So how that blend happens, between the returning guys and the new guys is really going to be interesting to see. I wish I could say I've been to some practices and have seen somehow the dynamics going, but with COVID, unfortunately, have not been able to get any access at this point. But yeah, I think the newcomers can be really impactful. It sounds like today we got some news regarding Ethan Morton, which is unfortunate, regarding getting sick with something besides COVID, which is interesting, of course. But that's, unfortunate regarding his development and how he's going to impact the team. Hopefully it's something that isn't going to keep him out super duper long. But I think, those guys can make a huge impact, and I'm really interested to see, especially, those guards, Morton and Ivy, to see, and even Newman, how they're going to impact the roster.
Yeah. Is it going to be weird calling games without 14,000 people there, assuming that, it's not going to, I mean, it's a safe assumption to make that we're not going to have 14,000 people in the arena in 3 weeks.
Right.
Is that going to be weird at all? The environment won't quite be the same?
No question. I mean, I know we're all biased towards Mackey, but Mackey is just so special when it's rocking. And so obviously I'm not going to know any different as far as calling a game without fans versus with fans, but this being my first year. But I'm sure just from an energy standpoint, even as a broadcaster, you probably feed off of the crowd and off of the energy in the arena as far as when to raise your voice and, increase the octaves and things of that nature. So yeah, I'm sure from like bringing an energy standpoint to the broadcast, it could be more difficult, I suppose. But obviously, being a huge Purdue fan as it is, if Purdue's doing well, I'm sure I can bring it. But if Purdue's not doing well, then there'll be less energy probably in the broadcast. So
one more part of that too.
That will be an interesting.
Everyone in the arena, including the players on the floor, are going to be able to hear what you say. Is that unnerving?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Well, I think actually what's going to work for our benefit there, I suppose, is if I want to trash one of the opposing players, I think they're going to probably not have us down courtside this year because of, being socially distanced. So I think we may be up there in the media section, up in the upper deck. So I can talk freely up there, I suppose, without having the opposing team hear me or something. So
yeah, I can just see you trashing guys, Bobby. I just think you're going to be brutal on that front. No, but because it's bingo is what Larry always said, right? So
bullseye, I think, right?
Bullseye,
not
bingo.
He would mix in some bingos too, but yeah.
Oh, that's right. And then it's Bobby Leonard's got the boom baby. That's right. So you'll have to work on that, but it just whatever comes natural will work.
Yeah, I'm thinking, buckets certainly wouldn't sound bad, and obviously it ties in well with my nickname. So we'll see.
Yeah, I know. Brian would say, because Craig Terrell was our guest last week, I said we went from lunch bucket, it was Craig Terrell to Bobby buckets for, I don't know how we're going to do it next week, but no, it'll be fun to hear you, and we all will be looking forward to having games to talk about, and obviously that's a big part of getting through this what we're dealing with, and that'll be a lot of fun from that standpoint. So I want to thank you. And we'll do this again because we'll have an interesting insight throughout the season, and it'll be fun to listen to you on the broadcast with Rob Blackman, and maybe as early as around Thanksgiving time, the Boilermakers will be. When is it scheduled, Brian?
They open November 25th in Florida.
Yeah, against Liberty, right?
Yeah,
so
Liberty.
But they haven't officially announced as of Thursday afternoon. Now,
we can piece together most of the schedule, but we don't have a Big Ten schedule yet. But
they'll get to it. So.
Yeah. So it looks like looking like 20 Big Ten games, correct? And then I guess hoping for, what do you think they're hoping for, Brian, as far as non-conference games total?
Well, you're allowed to play 7. So right now they've got the game at Miami. They've got the 2 games in Florida. They've got a couple of non-conference games at home.
Valpo and Indiana State.
Indiana State, and I think there's another one. I might be mistaken on that one. And then you got the Crossroads in Indy. So you're pretty much full there.
Yeah, you pretty much are good then. So.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, 27 game season. And then I guess as far as NCAA selection committee and how that goes, that's going to be interesting.
Kind of NCAA tournaments as close to normal as they can, but everything's
right.
I mean, it could be chaos. It could be teams picking up opponents two or 3 days before game time, too, just because of the fluidity of all of this. So buckle up, everybody.
Yep. So
yeah,
we'll see. Hopefully, cross our fingers and we can get as many of these games in as possible. But
yeah, no doubt.
As you've seen with football, who knows?
As we're seeing this weekend, absolutely, because there's no game. Obviously, it's Purdue and Wisconsin. Well, Bob, thanks so much, and we appreciate that. We want to thank our sponsors, XXX and State Farm agent Trent Johnson and Hilton Garden Inn, and the good folks at WLFI, Gordon Jackson, Scott Sumner, for helping us get this Gold and Black live. We appreciate all they do to make this happen. We'll be back next week, hopefully previewing Purdue Northwestern football and getting 1 week closer to the start of basketball season too. Not taking anything for granted these days, as we all know. So have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks again. Thanks, Bobby, for your time, and Brian, appreciate all you do as well, and always enjoyed the conversation. We'll look forward to doing it again next time on Gold and Black Live.